Hi everyone and welcome to this course on React.js. In this course, we'll talk about React.js and we'll explore all of its functionalities, how it works, what is it used for, and basically we'll see everything about React.js. So what is React.js? React is basically a JavaScript library, but some people consider it as a framework of JavaScript because React.js is comparable to AngularJS. But in reality, React.js is a library that was developed by Facebook. So it is maintained by Meta, formerly Facebook, and a community of individual developers and companies. Additionally, React is called as a single page application. So as an example, we have this website in front of us. So we have this website that you can clearly see in front of you. So it's Node.js, which is not built on React. Now, if you want to transition from one page to the other, you can do this by clicking on the page you're looking to go to. So when you click on it, the page will reload again and again. So in this case, we are on the home page and we're moving to the About page. And as you can see, the page is reloading and then displaying the About page. Now, we are moving to the next one. We download the page, so it will reload it, and then it displays the download page to us. Okay, so now let's talk about websites that are created with the help of React.js. So when making a transition to the different pages, only special components are being refreshed and displayed. For example, here, if we click on entertainment, you can see that only its component is being rendered and not the whole page. The same goes for the technology component. It's doing the same thing. So basically, this is the advantage of React.js. It only refreshes the component and not the whole page. Alright, so in React.js we use components, and using components gives us the advantage of reusability. So in React, a reusable component is a piece of user interface that can be used in various parts of an application to build more than one user interface instance. Meaning that you can use the reusable component here and there on different parts of the website. Alright, so basically this is the idea behind React.js. Now let's properly begin this journey, but first we have to download some plugins. So I know that you're doing development. In this course, you're learning about development, so you must have the best IDE to be able to do so, where you write your code. In addition to your IDE, you have to download this software here. You have to go through this website, Node.js. You have to download and install this in your system as well. Okay, so after clicking on this, it will be downloaded into your system. It's a simple process, basically. Alright, so after the download is done, you have to go to the command prompt, make sure that this plugin is being installed in your system. Okay, so to do that, you write this command, node -- version. If you can see the version, it means that Node.js has been installed in your system. Now, depending on what time you're watching this, you might have a different version, but you get the idea. Okay, so after Node, you have to check the npm version. So just to make sure that it's been installed or not. Alright, so both versions have been installed in my system. npm stands for Node Packing Manager. So why do we use npm? I'll explain it to you using a simple example. And the example is the following. So if we talk about Amazon warehouses, for example, they have lots of products available in there. Now, if someone wants to sell their products there, they reach out to Amazon and can sell it through them. So if a consumer wants to buy a product, they will only need they will only need to go to Amazon.com. They will need to visit Amazon.com and buy it from there. And Amazon will ship it to them. Like Amazon will ship the product to them. Now, when it comes to coding, if we try to look for similarities with this example, of course, this example has nothing to do with coding, but we're trying to find some similarities, some patterns. So if we try to look for similarities, it will be in the following manner. So we have foreign developers who come and compile their code. Then they need to place it somewhere. So they come and place it on the NPM website. And if any consumer or customer wants to use it, so if they want to use it, then they will need to, let's say, have a contract with the NPM website, and then they can install the package in their system. So that's basically how it works. It's in the same way that, it's exactly the same way how a marketplace functions. Like, it connects the providers to the people who are interested, the buyers and the sellers. And that's basically how it works. So we connect the developers who can like store their code in this on this website, on the NPM website. We connect them with the users of those codes. All right, so like if we want to install the Bootstrap as well in our project, we can do it by using the npm.bootstrap and it will be installed. All right, so that's pretty much it for this lecture. And now on to the next one. In this lecture, we learn how to create our first React app. So after creating the React app, we will understand the basic syntax of React. Then we will write our first React program here. So first of all, I go to the official website of React.js. Here, they have given all the commands on how to create a React app. You can see it from here and can follow me as well. All right, so let's move to our code editor. Okay, so here I made a folder. You need to make your folder as well, anywhere you want to create your React app. After creating it, you can open your terminal by clicking here. After opening the terminal, we'll write this. So npx create React app first application. This is a command from which the React app can be created. So we'll write npx create React app. After writing it, you can write any name for your React app. So it's up to you when it comes to the name that you want to give. All right. So since this is our first React app, that's why we're naming it like this, first application. Okay. After writing this, we'll press enter and then our app creation will start. This may take some time depending on the processor you're using. So we'll wait for a while, like let's wait a little bit. And now our React application has been created. Great job. All right. So after the creation, you can see that some folders have been created on this side, but you do not need to panic as this React app works in this way. So that's how it works basically. Just don't panic. It's normal what you see in front of you. When you create a React app, some folders and files are created by default as well. So there are some of the files. There are some of the files which are unnecessary, of course, and we don't need them. So we'll remove them. All right. So there is a process of removing them, which is called cleanup. It's called the cleanup process. Before doing the cleanup process, let me show you how to start your React app. So let's see how it looks like. Let's see how the app looks like. Okay. So here they've given us 2 more commands and we'll use them as well. So basically we have to move to the directory with the name we've given to our React application. Its name was first application. We'll move to the directory. And to move towards the directory, we use the command cd. We'll write cd first application. Now we have moved to this directory. Now we have to write npm start. Then our React application will start. So here the development server is getting started and it will take a few seconds. Okay, so now our application has been started. This application is running on localhost colon 3000 by default. Now you can see that there are lots of files and folders and there is some content in them as well. So let me teach you the syntax. Basically, the React app it works in a hierarchical manner. So first there is a parent and then it has some children and the children keeps on forming till till we need it to be. forming, like till we want it to be. Like how far we gonna go with the tree structure, it's really up to us. So these children can be components, functions, or anything like that. But the parent is always just one. Like, you know, like it comes once. We just have one parent in the React application. All right, so the index.html file in the public folder is the parent in the React application. And you do not have to use this file. So this is the parent. This single div is always the parent in the React application. And after that, there are different files like app.js and others that you can see. But the index.html file is always the parent. And you guys should not touch it. All right, so now you can see that our application is running. It means that our application has been created. Okay, so it's showing by default due to this file, but we don't need all of this in our application. We will design our application by ourselves. So to remove it, we'll use the cleanup process. That's the process that will follow. You need to follow me so as to, you know, like if you want to know which ones are the files that I'm removing from my application, pay attention to what I'm doing and just try to follow through. All right, so I'm removing from the application things like setup, tests, and other files that we do not need. So we'll delete them. Now our files have been removed, so some errors are appearing after deleting the files. So we'll delete it as well. Basically, it is a component or function. So we'll learn how all of this work in the next lectures. So we are removing it as well. So after removing it, we're getting more errors. You don't need to be worried about that for now. We'll deal with the errors and we'll figure out the solution. So we don't need this content too, so we're removing it. We want to start from zero. So as you can see, the files which have been removed, we have to remove their content as well from different places. It's not enough just to remove it like this. We have also to remove their content as well. So I'm finding that from the error it's showing me. Okay, so since we deleted the files, we need to remove the content from everywhere. If we do not remove the content, it will create some problems later on. So now our cleanup process is completed. You can see that in the beginning we had a lot of files and folders, and now we only have a few remaining. So that's great. It's much more, like structured and clean. It's way more clean like this and organized. Yeah, like before it was a total mess. All right, so we'll start from zero now. I'll try to explain every single concept and everything that I'm doing, like step by step. Okay, first of all, we'll talk about the node modules. The node modules are the packages you install through npm. Their dependencies are stored in this folder. For example, if you install Bootstrap, then its dependencies will be stored here. If you install Font Awesome through npm, then it will store here as well. It will be stored here as well. So after that, we have the package.json. The files I'm telling you about, the files I'm telling you, I'm talking about, need not to be touched. Like these files that I'm referring to now need not to be touched. They are very important. Like these files are very important files, and without these files, your app cannot run. So please do not touch them. Do not delete them. Keep them as is. All right. So in the package.json, the metadata of your application are stored here. For example, your app's name, version, dependencies, scripts are stored in these files. You don't need to learn about this file as it's not important, but you don't have to delete it neither. So yeah, don't delete it. Just keep it as is. This is a parent root, so everything starts from here. After that, we come to sources like index.js. This file is very important because from here it's rendering. So render basically displays the content of the application on the browser. Okay, so I'm removing this as we don't need it for now. I'm simply telling you about the React DOM random function. So let me tell you in some simple words how this function works. Okay, let me display like we are displaying here, hello. So these are two parameters in the render method. One parameter is that you want to display, and the second one is where you want it to display. Okay, so I told you that the root is the parent. Obviously, whatever will be displayed will do so in relation to the parent. So root is our parent, and render is basically what is displaying on the browser. So we're displaying this here. We have to display hello here at the parent position. Okay, so we can see the result after saving it on the browser. Okay, so this is how it works basically. We'll discuss it in detail as we move on. Alright, so this is our first step to create our first React application. We wrote our program, so we created our first program. So officially, you have made your first React application. Congrats! And now on to the next lecture. In the last video, we saw how we can create our React application. We created this function in which hello is written. And now we'll go deeper and further in our understanding about React.js. So, you may be wondering how does this simple HTML file works? Like it looks like a simple HTML, but if you see that this technically, if you see technically how it works, like in the render syntax, it's not HTML. But it's basically a JSX element. Alright, so before teaching you about the JSX elements, let me tell you how this function works. So we'll go to the website named Babel and we'll paste this render function there. So now you can see how this function is working. Actually, our browser doesn't understand the React language, and when the function is launched in the browser converts it into his own form. It's basically the same thing. If you've noticed that if you've studied the simple JavaScript, you will know what's happening here. Like if you went through some JavaScript lectures or some JavaScript course, you will know what's happening here. It's basically creating the simple element in which the content is hello world, which is being rendered here. So the JS element allows you to use JavaScript and HTML side by side. If you are simply talking about JavaScript and HTML, like this is a simple HTML file, and if you want to use JavaScript as well, you first make the HTML file and you call the JavaScript file with the help of the JSX file. So you don't have to do that in this case. So you can simply use HTML and JavaScript together here. Because here, the render function renders HTML and the JavaScript method is rendered as well. So this is much easier by using JavaScript. Alright, so if you talk about React DOM, we have to import this thing named as React. So React allows us to use JS elements, and if I remove this here, you cannot use the JS element anymore. So JS elements makes this thing much easier. You don't have to make a separate file for JavaScript and like all the complexities that comes with it. You can only take JS element so that you can use both HTML and JavaScript together. So that was the basic part. But if we move on further, like when we are having more fragments, we'll use JavaScript in JS elements. Alright. When it comes to JS, it's not necessary for you at this point to make extra files and render it. Okay, so hope everything is clear, and now on to the next lecture. In this lecture, we'll focus on CSS styling, which means like how to apply CSS styling on elements in HTML of JSX. Alright, so if we talk about external CSS, then it doesn't have a considerable difference. But if you talk about internal and inline styling, then there is some difference. If we talk about traditional index.html, and if we want to apply inline and internal CSS, so let's say we want to apply styling on element in the traditional index.html, we can do it in this way. We'll write style, then we will put the semicolon, and for example, if we want to change the color of h1 element of the h1 element, then we'll write color. So we'll put the semicolon and we'll write black, but it's giving an error because it's JSX element. It's a JSX element. So it's not the element of the initial index.html. So the styling method will be different in this case. So how can we apply the internal and inline styling on a JSX element? Let me show you how we can do it. So now I'm removing it as it's giving me an error. So we are going to use another method. We'll write style, then we'll put another expression inside this one. Let me put some content. So hey, how are you? Alright, so I want to change the color of this content. So for that, we'll write color red inside this expression. Now we'll save it. Now I'll check that inline styling has been applied to the h1 element. We'll go to the browser, and as you can see, it's been applied on it. Okay, so this is the way to apply the inline element on JSX, on the JSX element basically. So for example, we'll take a div and then we'll put an h1 in this div and then we save it. If you want to apply styling on this div, this can be done in the same way like we did it in the previous one. So we're changing its background color to green. If you want to give another property, then you will have to put a comma. So I'm giving another property, height, 100 VH. So this is the height. It's showing me an error because we added a comma here. We are giving width as well so that our screen should be colored. Okay, I gave the width 100%. So what have we done till now? We took a div and added h1 in it. This div will be covering our whole screen as we've given 100 VH height and 100% width. So now we'll check that the inline styling has been applied on elements or not. We'll move towards the browser. So as you can see, it's been applied. So inline styling works in this way for the JSX elements. So this was our inline styling. If you want to apply internal styling, then follow these instructions. We'll remove this as we've learned this concept. So now you can feel that it's a little bit irritating to write too much properties and it seems congested as well. Okay, if we make a variable and give these properties in that variable and we call that variable in style, then it will be better. So we're going to do it that way. Okay, we're removing it. Now we'll make a variable with the name of const main and it will make an object. So we'll give background green, height 100 VH, width 100%. So this is our variable. If you want to apply these properties in this single div, then how can we do it? I told you that if you want to put an outside variable in single HTML div element, like in a single HTML div or element, then you need to use the expression. Like that's what you should do if you want to put some outside variable in a single HTML div or element. You need to use the expression. Expressions are the curly braces. So we'll put the variable here. Now we'll input it and see if the values will apply or not. So, okay, you can see if the value applies or not. Let me add some content as well. So, hey, what's up? I'll write this. So this is our content. Now we'll see whether this CSS will be applied in this way or not. So as you can see, it's been applied. So whatever properties we've given to the variable, we simply put the properties. So this is how we can do an internal and inline styling in React with JSX elements. All right, and now on to the next lecture. In the last lecture, we saw how JSX allows us to use HTML and JavaScript side by side. If we use a traditional method in which we had to make an HTML file where all the elements will appear, and then we wanted to manipulate those elements, then we had to make a separate JavaScript file in which we call those elements through ID or class. And then we use the DOM manipulation. But React makes it easy, in the sense that it allows us to make an HTML file, and in that HTML we use JavaScript and manipulate those HTML elements. So that's the basic concept behind it. But now we'll move a little towards practical things and we'll learn how it works. So here I'll tell you like three concepts. I'll show you like three concepts. You can follow any of them. Before, let me give you an example. So first of all, we'll make a variable and we'll make it like a first variable. That's what we'll call it. And in this variable, we'll store the value expert. And here we're taking another variable and we'll name it second variable. And in this one, we'll store the value developer. So these are our two variables. Let's now see how to use them in our HTML. So there are three ways and you can use it as it suits you. So here we're taking an h1 element. Let me tell you that they are basically React fragment. So I'm just telling you that this is basically like they are basically a React fragment. So for example, if you want to use more than one div or elements, then you have to put it in fragment, like in a fragment manner. So it compiles and renders whatever is in the fragment. So let me show you like how the manipulation in one element works. So this is an h1 element. Now if I write if I want to show the value expert of the first variable, then this is how to do it. If I write directly here, then it will not work. So let me show you. I wrote first variable directly and saved it. Now you can see that it's been displayed as it's here. I wanted to display the value expert. So how can I do that? We can do that through expressions, curly bracket. You will put the curly braces and we'll put the name of the variable and save it. These expressions allow us to use JavaScript. So now I gave the variable in the expression and saved it. Now we're moving to the browser and we can see the changes. So as you can see, it's displayed the value of our variable, not the variable itself. So this is the best thing you can use to access the variable's value in an h1 tag. You won't have to make another JavaScript file to access the variable's value. Okay, so besides that, I'm displaying this value as well. So I gave a space and put a second variable and then I save it. Now we'll go to the browser and as you can see, both values have been shown here. So that was the first method. Now we'll see the second method. So I'll write we want to write both variables in one expression. So how do we achieve that? We take the first variable. If you're writing in the same expression, then you will have to concatenate. So it will give me an error if I don't concatenate it. So for concatenation, you'll just need to put the plus and then you can give your second variable. Okay, so now we'll save it and we'll see what are the changes that are happening. So we got the values of both variables, but there's no space between them. We want the space here, so it's not a big issue. We'll put commas after the plus and put space between them and we'll concatenate it again. We save it. And now, as you can see, the changes have occurred. The space has appeared. But as you can see, we had to write a space. So for example, if you have a paragraph with spaces, then you have to give spaces again and again. It will take enough time. So we have another concept, which is the template literals. So now we'll use it. There's a button in your keyboard, like back tick. You have to press on that. I'm removing this and then I'm pressing the back tick button. So as you can see, it's appeared. So there is a simpler way to what I'm doing. So you can take the expression and then take the back tick. So now here I'm writing we are. Next, I want to get the value of the first variable. So if you want to show the value of the variable in the back tick, then To do that, you have to use the dollar sign. Without it, you can't show it. You can't show that. So now we'll write first variable and we'll write the second variable with it. Now, as you can see, I've written everything in a single expression. Okay, we can save it and we'll go to the browser to see it. And as you can see, we are expert developers. But the difference is that we used literals in the expression. So when you are using literals to show the value of the variable, then you will have to use the dollar sign. Without it, like without that, you will get errors. So this was the template literals, and now let's move on to the next lecture. In this lecture, we'll talk about a very important concept of React.js, which is named components. So we use components for reusability. If you talk about traditional coding or simple HTML, and we made a website which has 4 different pages, and then we want different headers on each page, then we'll have to make headers separately for each page. You know, like the traditional way of writing some code with HTML. But with React, it's much easier. It's much simpler for us. This concept of component is very helpful to make things easy for us. So component basically allows us to write the code in one place and then use that single code in different functions or places. So with an example, let's understand how it works. Looking at this render function, for example, taking a simple h1 and writing welcome to our site, and then we save it. Now we'll display it. So as you can see, it's been displayed. Now we'll try to make a component. So we'll make a file in the folder whose name will be JSX, because React will get to know that JSX has been used here. That's why the extension should be JSX. Otherwise, you can set the extension as JS. Okay, so now this file has been prepared, and now we'll have to convert this file into a component. So this is done using a function. We will import React in it, because you have to import React everywhere, like React is used. Like you have to import it wherever you want to use it. That's why we're doing that. Like that's why we're importing React. Okay, so you can use JSX in React. Now we'll make a function, as I told you, and that function is necessary for the component. So we'll name it header. Our function is created, so we'll have to return a value. Okay, so we'll return the value h1, and we will put the content, welcome to our site. Now that our function has been created, we will find out how to reuse it in different pages. So to do that, we'll export this function. We'll write export and then default. Okay, so we wrote default so that I'm exporting a single function. If there were more than one function and we had to export them, then we would have written the names of the various functions in curly braces instead of using default. But right now, we have one function, and that's why we are using default to export the function. Okay, so recall that React works in hierarchy. So first there is a parent, and then it has a children. So first you have the parent, then we have the children, and it's up to you, to determine the number of children that you want. So right now we are still in the initial level, so we'll see the basic things, and when the task will get a little bit more complicated, then we'll get to know its importance. So here our component has been formed and exported, so we'll reuse the component easily. Okay, so we'll save it and we'll move our index.js file. Now we want to use our component header.jsx here. So as you've exported it, so we'll have to import it as well. Without importing it, you won't be able to use it. Okay, so we'll write header, and we're importing it from header.jsx component. Now our component is imported. You can put header.jsx with it, but React is powerful enough to judge what is importing, so the extension is not necessarily doing so. Okay, so we got the component and the function. Now we can use the content of the function here. So we'll try to use this one. We try to display this component here. It will go there and display the content. Now I'm saving it and I'm going to the browser to check. And as you can see, it's been displayed in front of us. So if we change the content to welcome to our site, yo, and as you can see, it's being read. It read it very well. So it read it as well. Okay. We can use it in different functions and components as well. So let me show you how it works. We'll write it multiple times, and as you can see, everything was displayed, like it displayed all of them. So we don't have to write the code again and again. We'll write the code once, we will export it, and we'll import it whenever we need it to be used. That's how simple it is. So it was it was a basic level of how all of this works. But when we move on to the next lectures, we will little by little explore some more advanced topics, and you'll get to know the importance of the component and how it works in React.js. Okay, so that was the basic concept behind components. And now on to the next lecture. In this lecture, we'll discuss one more concept in React.js, which is props. So props is directly related to components. In the last lecture, we learned how to make components and how to reuse them. If we make components or functions, so we learned how to do it. Now, if we wanna pass the data of that function or component, how can we do it? Let's see. So components basically work like a function. In functions, we use parameters, and then we have arguments to pass the data. In React.js, we use props as an argument for the components. So let me show you in practical terms how all of this works, so that you'll have a better understanding of what I'm talking about. Alright, so recall again that props are related to components. Okay, so we'll make a component in the source folder with the name user. Now our file is prepared. We'll write its boilerplate and we'll React import as we are using JSX. Okay, so after that we have to give a function name. So we'll give the function name user. This is the function we made. If you want to reuse it, then we have to export it. So we'll use export default. Since it's just a function, we used default. So here component has been created, and we can reuse it anywhere we want. Okay, so I'm adding a content in it. We'll write return keyword, the return keyword. Okay, so as I told you, if you have to use more than one element in JSX, then you have to write it in the React fragment. Okay, so I'm using two HTML elements. One will be used in H1, in which I'll write my name is John. And with that, I'll take the P tag, in which I'll write I am a front-end developer. So we are now going to export our component. We can easily reuse this component. So now we'll go back to our index.js file and we'll import the component which we had made. Okay, so we'll write import user from user, as we are in this directory. So that's why we accessed user.jsx file. So we are getting an error. We mistakenly put dots here. Okay, so I just removed it. So our component has been imported. Now we'll call it and see how it shows. Okay, so we wrote it here and we save it. Now we'll go to the browser to see if it works properly. So it displays what we had in mind, but there's a complication. And the complication is that right now we wrote the details of just one user. If I want to have 7 or 8 different users, how it works, how can we do it? Let's see. So I'm copying it, I'm making 4 users, and as you can see, the content is the same, but I want that their details should be different. I want to have different details. So think about it for try to pause and think about it. So imagine I have to create content for different users. How can I do it? Okay, so normally we create several files, but it's not effective and it's memory consuming. So we have to do it differently. If not, it will be a huge process. Okay, so I think I should do something like, for example, I can send dynamic data from the parent to the children. So basically it's our parent here, and this is its child. So it's working as a function like we use to pass data through parameters and arguments, in the same way like when we passed components through props. Okay, so we'll remove it here and we'll try to pass its arguments. Okay, so this is a user and its name is John. I'm taking another argument, expertise, and I'll write front end developer. So this is the child and this one is its parent. Okay, so these properties are sending here, and as we are sending arguments to the child, so we have to access them as well. Otherwise we won't know, we won't know that we are getting properties from the parent. That's why we have to access the data. Okay, so to access these properties, we will use the keyword props. That's the keyword that we'll be using. So we'll have to use it if you want to access the properties of a parent. Now we are removing it and we'll try to fetch the data dynamically. Okay, so now I'll write my name is, and I'll write props.name as a way to recall, to use them in curly braces. Okay, so I have accessed the properties of the parent with the help of props. Now I'm taking a p tag and I'll write I am a, and we'll write expertise, props.expertise. So as you can see, its expertise have appeared. So we have the expertise in front of us. Okay, so now I'll save it and we'll go to the browser to check the changes. The page is reloading as we did not save the file. Okay, so now I've saved the file, and as you can see, the data we were sending dynamically from the parent to the child is showing in front of us. So now if I have 3 different users, then I'll copy it and we'll paste it 3 times, and I'm changing the name to Mark and expertise to backend developer. Okay, so here I'll change the name to Sarah and the expertise to DevOps engineer. Now I'll save it and you will see what happens in our browser. So as you can see in front of you, we took 3 different users and their properties have been shown in front of us. So we didn't have to make a separate boilerplate. We just made one boilerplate and input the properties with the help of props, and we accessed the properties we gave access to the child through props. So React made this process for us very simple, and it made it easy for us that we made just one boiler and set one structure, and we put properties where we called the component. So we just have to change the property, then we can get the data dynamically. So that was it for the concept of props. I tried to simplify it and explain it in the clearest manner possible. I hope everything is crystal clear to you now. Alright, so that's pretty much it for this lecture, and now on to the next one. In this lecture, we'll study hooks. We'll learn about hooks. So let's visit React.js tutorial website to see how hooks work. Alright, so in React.js, they are having 2 components, which are class-based components and function-based components. So talking about class-based components is like you're writing any function in the class-based component, then you convert the class into a function, and then after that you have to use this function, but not for functional based components. It's not having this complication. So by using these functions, you can use them under the hooks. Alright, so this thing is much more simplified when we have hooks. So many of the developers are moving from class-based components to functional-based components because in this one, you just need to write a few lines of code and you won't have complications. So basically, we're having many hooks. For example, I'm on the React.js official website here, and in this one, it's having a use state hook and many other hooks like the use effect, use navigator. So they are having pre-built hooks, and you can also make your own hooks. Okay, so I'll explain it to you, and I'll provide you some practical examples as well regarding how they work. Hooks are mostly written on top of something. So for example, you make any function. If you want to use state in this one, then you cannot define it in it. You can only use it under the top of the function. So you have to define the hooks which are under, and after defining the functions which are under, you will use the hooks in them. So for example, if I write state, update state, and defined use state, you have to make sure that when you initialize the use state, you can import it from the React. So in the next lecture, I'll tell you about that with the help of use state, like how we manage it within the state. So talking about the use effect, we are having two arguments in it, functions and dependency. I'll talk about them all in the next lecture. Okay, so as we studied in the previous lectures about hooks and gapped a little bit about hooks, so in this video I'll go towards the implementation, and I'll show you how to implement an important hook name, use state. So I'll create a project which will define the previous concept and use state, and to do that I need to go to the source folder. So basically the project that we're gonna create will be created in the React app. It will be our first official project in React.js. So we'll make a folder in the source folder, which we will name components. In component, we basically need two components. One will be header and the other will be named counter. So we are removing this as we don't need it right now. The more you will be organized, the better it will be for you. So I'm making a folder here. I'm defining the folder into components. One component I need will be with the name counter. Okay, so sorry, I mistakenly wrote this, so bad spelling from my side, sorry about that. I'm making it again. Okay, I made the file with the name, and now I'm making another file with the name of header. I'll tell you how we'll combine it in React.js file. So now we got these two files. I'm writing it's boilerplate, import React, and I'm defining the function as well. So now I have to define the function. I will export the default header. Okay, so now our header has been formed. We will now implement the boilerplate in a counter file, and we'll define a function. Okay, so then we'll export it. Now both have been formed. Firstly, we'll target header. We'll put them in app.js. In app.js, okay, we'll write return and have to import header. Like that, we have imported counter as well. Now we'll define them in our main. So I told you it will go to the render function of index.js from app.js. So now we got a main on the top. After that we got counter. It's been defined as well, but we'll have to write it in the React fragment. Then it will work. Okay, it's giving an error, so let me check. It's giving an error in index.js, so we are removing it. Now an error has been fixed. The error that we had was fixed. Let us check if our component is working or not. So I'll write this is a header. Now I'll write h1. This is a counter. Okay, now we'll go to browser, and as you can see, both header and counter have appeared in front of us, meaning that our components, our render, are working. Okay, so we will target our header components. First, we will define it in div so that we can get the container. We'll take it class name. We use class while using the simple HTML, but in React, you have to give the class name. Okay, so we will give its class name main. Now, we will see the header as we have to do with the CSS. That's why we need to give the class name main header. Okay, so this is our header. We'll take UL, the UL tag in the header, and in this one we'll take the LI home counter about. Okay, so I'm trying to tell you like how we can render multiple components in single pages. We will design this later on, so don't worry about it for now. Okay, so now we will have to build the counter. So what can we do? We'll take the h3 tag, and in this one we'll write counter, and we'll give the button below. So I told you that you have to write in the fragment when you have to render multiple components. So right now we'll give a static value, but when we'll move forward we'll make it dynamic, because we are using use state concept. That's the concept we're using. So that's why we'll give it 0. Okay, it's giving an error. So now the error has been removed, so we'll check, and we got the counter and button as well. Okay, so now we'll make a file in source with the name counter.css. Okay, we got our CSS file. In CSS we'll have to import styling in the component, then you'll get to use the CSS property. Okay, our CSS will be used here, so we're importing CSS, counter.css. We got counter.css file. That's the file that we got here in front of us, so we'll import it here as well, as we are inside the directory of components, and counter.css file is in that directory. So first we have to go outside the directory. Okay, so we'll put double dot and then we'll write counter.css. We got this file as well, so like that. We'll import it in the header as well. So now we'll import CSS file in header, we'll write counter.css, and we got this one. Okay, so firstly we'll have to look at this div because we want to cover this page. So we'll try to target this class. We'll take the background pink, height 100, width 100%, and now as you can see we got the height 100 VH and width 100%, but we are getting margin and padding issues. So to correct it, we'll target it and we'll give the padding of 0, the margin of 0, and box sizing border box. So now see, this issue has been resolved. As you can see, it's been resolved. Okay, now we'll target this header portion. We'll go to header and we'll copy May header and we'll paste it here. We'll give it the background width, so we have to show it in the horizontal position. Okay, so we'll have to target UL. Now we got in a vertical position. We'll justify the content space between. Okay, and now here you go. You can see the spaces. So the issue is that we don't need that margin. So to remove this margin, we'll give the width of 50%, and then we give the width of the main header 100%. And we are cutting the background color. We paste it here. Okay, so to bring it towards the center, we'll use margin 0 auto, and now as you can see it displays as we want it to be displayed. So we're using padding 10 pixels in main div. I think it's still not enough, so we're giving 30 pixels instead. Okay, we don't need these dots, so we're removing these dots so as to target li. We'll write outline none, text decoration none, list style none. And now as you can see the dots are removed, but we have to increase it here. So, like we have to increase its font size from the current value to 225 pixels, like 225 pixels. It doesn't look so well, but I'm trying to give you a concept of how to do all of this. Like just like if you see what I'm doing, you'll get an idea of how all of this works. So I'm changing my font size to 20 pixels. Now our header has been found. Okay, now we want that when we move our mouse, it shows some effect. So I'm writing cursor pointer. Okay, now we'll target this position of the counter. We'll take it in the main div and we'll have to target this. So we'll give div 100%. Let me take it in the div as well. So things will be much easier, and we'll name it counter parent. We'll copy it and go to counter.css. We paste it. We'll take height 100 VH, display flags, align center, justify center, and now as you can see it's appeared in the middle. So now we want to design it. We'll target h3 in the counter. We'll write counter parent h3 tag and we'll increase its font size to 30 pixels. And now as you can see our font size have increased. Okay, so now we try to target this button. To target it, we'll write counter parent button, and we take background transparent, font size 20 pixels, border radius 5 pixels, padding 10 pixels from upwards, and button and right left 40 pixels. So now you can see our button has been created this way. Okay, now I'm giving some margin from the top, 10 pixels, and here you go. As you can see, it looks a little bit better. Okay, basically the purpose of making this is that when I press the button, so the number inside it should be incremented. So how can I do it? Like how can we do that? We will implement it through use state. So we'll do the remaining of the implementation in the next lecture. Alright, so let's move on. In the previous lecture, we saw how to design our web page, and in this lecture we'll now see how to manipulate in this web page, how to manipulate different things by using different JavaScript techniques. So what we want to achieve here is to make the counter increase by 1 every time we click on this button. So to do this, we'll use state hook. We'll see like how powerful it is for state management. So we'll go in our terminal now. We want that whatever the user, like whenever they click on this, it will increase by 1 unit. So we'll use the onClick method. So when someone targets this button, it will automatically activate this function. So we'll make this function on the upper side as well. We'll write const handle. We'll use arrow function here. Okay, I hope you have studied JavaScript because you need like some basic knowledge and understanding of JavaScript to like, you know, be familiar with what I'm doing here and understand like what's the difference between the arrow function and the normal function. So when the user will click on this button, it will target it. We have to add a dynamic value here. So now we'll make a variable count and we'll initialize the value to 0. So now I'll tell you like about the use state syntax. In the use state, there are 2 variables. First one is the current state and the other one is the updated state. So you have to remember that the current value is being initialized here, and we want that our value should be 0 here. Like it's already 0, so we'll write 0 here. So okay, so that the current state value is 0 here. Whenever you will change the value of the updated state value, it will automatically change the value of the current state as well. Okay, so here we'll write the value of the current state. So as you can see, it's 0. Now, we want that whenever the user clicks on the value of the updated state, it will change because it will automatically change its value as well. Okay, so now we'll write update state here. We'll do a simple thing. So in the current state, the 0 value has been stored. We'll use the current state plus 1 in it. Now, okay, so whenever the user will click on this button, the value of the updated state value will be increased and the current state value will also increase. So we'll save it and we check it in the browser to see like if it's working or not. So the current and updated values are changing, and as you can see, it's again keep on changing whenever we're clicking on this button. So the use state is so much powerful. It's very powerful for different state management purposes. You can change it from real time, so that yeah, like that's how it works basically. So that was the example regarding use state, and yeah, I think now it's much clearer to you. So I hope you understood the concept of use state, and now on to the next lecture. In this lecture, we'll try to make the structure of our React app a little bit minimalistic. So we'll try to make it reasonable and not very complex and lengthy, so that the user won't face any difficulty when trying to understand how it works. Okay, so as I told you before, React works like a hierarchy. It works in a hierarchical manner. So first of all, it has a parent, then it has a children, and then the children keeps on forming so long as you want it to be forming. So you can have like multiple layers, and as long as like you want it to form, it can form as long as you want it to be. So these children can be functions, can be components, and it depends on you, like what you want to create in these children. So you don't need to touch the index.html, as I told you before. In the whole React app, we use only one render, and all the code inside it runs on your browser. So if you see this small program, it has a code of 3 lines, but when we have to make our web application with different pages and content and so on and so forth, it won't be a good practice to code all of this in a function, right? So yeah, obviously, like no one does that. Obviously, you would consider making different components and will call those components when you need them. So that's how we'll try to make it a little minimalistic. Okay, so I'm removing this part. I'll put this in fragments. And now we should make one function, one component, and all the content we should call here. Okay, so whatever will be in the function will be rendered. Okay, if we remove this, then our browser is totally clear. We'll make a file and we'll name it app.js. So do you remember, like when we made the React app, then one file was formed by default with the name app.js. So that file was basically for exactly that. So you put everything in that file to call it, in order to call it with React.render. But I wanted to teach you about the basics, so that's why I deleted that file. Okay, so now I'll tell you how you can make a structure or hierarchy in the React app. And now, as you can see, I made a React.js file. So I'll write the traditional boilerplate, import React from React. You will have to write this if you want to use JSX. Yeah, like if you want to use JSX, you have to write this. So here we'll write function app and we'll write return. This is a function we've made, so we're going to export it. Okay, now we have exported it. We want to display this content at this place. We remove it here so we can display it here. Okay, I'll write import app. Now we'll call it. And now, as you can see, this is the method, and this method is better, or the previous one that we wrote all of the code in the render function. So I think this method is better actually, as we make separate components and we'll write content there, and whatever will be inside it, I'll call it from there. So I'll call it here. Okay, now we'll go back to app.js and I will write h1 hello, how are you? I save it. Now we'll go to the browser and see the changes. So just observe how each hierarchy has been formed. So first of all, this is the parent, then we have all of these. Okay, so we can add here this as well. So for example, we go to user, we'll remove it as we're not using props. So we'll write my name is Mark and I'll write I'm a web developer, and we've exported it here. So now we'll call it here in app.js. We'll write import from users. We'll call it. We'll put fragments here as we're using more than one. Okay, so we'll put this code in React fragment. We'll call it here and just see the changes. So its content has been displayed. Okay, do you understand how hierarchy has formed? So we had this parent and then we called it, and whatever will be present in app will be rendered. So now you can see that we call a lot of components in app, and after that you have the user. So we imported user here. So as you can see, the hierarchy has been formed. React basically works in this way, such that you make a structure in which you have a parent and have a children, and you can decide how much like how far you need to go with the children, like how many components you want in a child. Okay, so you can see that it moves in a line from the top to the bottom, and the parent cannot directly access the third child. The parent moves to its first child, then that child moves to its child, then you can access the component that you need. So this is basically how it works. All right, and now on to the next lecture. In this lecture, we'll learn how to do conditional rendering in React. So if we simply talk about JavaScript, we can use the if-else condition. But if you are talking about JSX element of React and want to do the rendering in it, then I'll not specifically go through the if-else. Let me give you an example on how we can do the conditional rendering in React. So first of all, we'll make an example file in the source folder and we'll name it test.js. So this is our test file. Now you'll make its boilerplate. So I'll write import React from React and I'll make a function with the name test. So I'm writing a return function and we'll export it by writing export default test. So before writing the code, we'll import it to our app.js file. As our browser is clear right now, I'll then write a code for button in which we'll write toggle. Okay, so now we'll make a div in app.js. Oh, sorry, so we won't write the button. Instead, we'll write the p tag. It is toggled, okay? So I'll give you an example on what we are exactly trying to do. So here I'll take the button and I'll name it toggle. Okay, so now I want that whenever I click on the button, it shows me this. And when I click again, then it won't show it to me. So basically, we do it through the conditional rendering. Okay, so we'll see the example of used state. We'll make used state, which we'll name toggle, update toggle, and then we'll put the initial value false. Now, I want that whenever I click on this button, then this component should appear. So we'll put onClick method. Okay, so as of right now, this toggle is false. So I want that whenever someone clicks on it, it's updated, like the value updates itself and becomes true. And whenever it will be true, then the toggle value will also become false. Okay, so here we won't write true, we'll write the exclamation mark toggle, not equal to toggle. So yeah, like it means that it's not equal to toggle, meaning that it should be its opposite. Whenever it is true, then it should be false. Okay, so now if I click on it, then it will be true, and if I click again, then it will turn to false. So the cycle will keep on moving back and forth from true to false. Okay, so after that you have a concept of conditional rendering. If I talk about like simple JavaScript things, then we use the if statement. But here in JSX, we can't do it this way. We'll get an error. If we try to do it that way, it will get an error, so it doesn't work. As you want that when the value of the toggle is true, then this is toggle should be displayed. So we'll write toggle and test, meaning that when the value of toggle is true, then it shows us this component. Okay, if we save it, then nothing has been displayed because our initial toggle value is false. And if we click on our button, then its value will be updated to true and will be stored in toggle. Okay, so then we'll check the condition. If the toggle will be false, then the component won't be displayed. But if the toggle is true, then the component will be displayed. Okay, so now we'll save it and we'll see in the browser. I'll click here, it becomes true. Yeah, like it became true and the component has been displayed. So if I click again, then it will disappear because the value is updated as false. So this is how conditional rendering works. All right, and now on to the next lecture. All right, so in this lecture, we'll talk about one more hook in React.js. In the last lecture, we learned how to use the state, which helps in state management. So there is another hook, which is the use effect. So this is a very helpful hook that we use in functional components. So what does the use effect basically do? Like, remember that in React, the whole web page is rendered once. Then any new component is updated specifically, not the whole page again. So it's component by component. Okay, so if you want to make changes during rendering, then we do these changes by using effect. So let me give you an example. First of all, we'll initialize the use effect. We have to do initialize below the top function. we'll write use effect and we'll have to import it as well. So it has a callback function. Whenever anything is getting rendered, the code in use effect will run. For example, I'm clicking here, thus only this component is rendered, but other things do not change, okay? I want that when I click on it, then it gets rendered and it shows me a message on top. So you have clicked, okay? We can do this through use effect. Okay, I'll write window.alert, I'm clicked. If I click this button, then this state will change, and when it will change, the function will run. Okay, now I'll save it and show you in the browser. As you can see, the page has reloaded. Then it got rendered the first time, and then, yeah, like it matches, and matches has been displayed. Yeah, so I clicked on the button again, and it got rendered again, and the message has been displayed again. So this is how to use the effect, like how use effect, like this is how the use effect works. And yeah, it's very useful because sometimes you want any small code to run after a specific rendering. So that's pretty much it. This is how it works. And now on to the next lecture. In this lecture, we'll see another concept in React.js, which is React Router DOM. So what does React Router DOM do? What does it basically do? Okay, so we usually have different pages on our website, right? And if we want that every page has its separate route, then we have to define the route. And we define that with the npm package React Router DOM. Okay, so before using it, we have to install it on our project. We'll copy it from here and we'll paste it in the terminal in VS Code, and we'll install it in our directory. So we'll write npm install React Router DOM. We'll install this package in our project. It may take some time. Okay, so now it's installing. We'll make 2 pages in this project and we'll define the route of both pages. So we'll make a page home page and we'll make the second page about page. Okay, so we made these 2 pages. Now our npm package has been installed as well. So for checking it, we'll go to this file package.json, and you can see in dependencies that React Router DOM has been installed. So we'll close it. We'll write the boilerplate import React from React, and then we'll write its function. Then we'll return it, and then we export it. Okay, so like this will work as well for about. So let me show you both pages. Okay, first of all, we'll import home and about. We'll display it here. Now we'll start our npm. Okay, so our home and about have been made. Right now our app is being initialized. We'll go to the section of documentation. And as you can see here, they have told us how to use the React Router DOM. So we want these 3 things from React Router DOM. First of all, we'll copy browser router. Now we'll import browser router. Now we'll write our app, which is getting rendered in the browser router. Okay, now we want these 2 things, i.e. routes and route. Okay, so we'll define the routes here. We'll import routes and route from React Router DOM. Now we'll write routes, meaning where it starts and where it ends. So to write it in one single route, we'll write route and we'll give the path. So we want that when we go to home page, then we get the / when we need the home page on this route, and we'll write the element. Now we want to render the home page on this route. Okay, so and on this route we want to render the about page. Okay, so our 2 routes, i.e. the home page and the about page, have been made. Okay, so now when anyone goes to this route, then he'll get this home rendered component, and if someone goes to this route, then he will get this about rendered component. So we'll go to the home page and we'll write return this is home page. We'll do the same with the about, and we will write this is the about page. So now if someone goes to this route, then he will get this page, and when someone goes to this route, then he'll get that page. Alright, so now we'll save it. we went to home page, so we got the home page rendered. And if we go to the about page, then we get the about page rendered. So this is how we can do routing in our web application. This was the first concept of React Router DOM. In the next lecture, I'll tell you about the concept of link, in which if you click on A, then we move on to this route, for example. If you click on this route, then it takes you there. So we'll talk about this concept in the next lecture. Alright, and now on to the next one. In the last lecture, we learned about the concept of the React Router DOM. Now in this tutorial, we'll continue that concept and we'll learn how to do linking between different routes. So for example, let's see how to change by clicking a button, like how we can do this. In the last lecture, we saw that when we go to the about page, then our about page is rendered. If we go to the home page, then our home page is rendered. Now, we'll add a header and we'll add two buttons in it. One for going towards the home page and the other for going towards the about page. So as we already have a header, so we'll import it in the app.js. So now we'll render header in the element section. You just need to remember that whatever you have to render, you just have to place it in the element section. We'll do the same for the about as well. So we'll just render header there too. Now we see the changes on the header has appeared on our home page, and the home page has been rendered as well. So like that, we'll check the about as well. And as you can see, some changes have been made on the about page. So now I want that when we click on the home page, then we move to the home page, but it's not happening. So to do that, we have to use another thing from the React Router DOM. So we'll go to our header, we'll import another thing, which is link. So you can't do it with the same method as in HTML. React is a little bit different. So first of all, we'll import the link from React Router DOM. We can assume it as a link and we'll place it here. So we're making another link and we're placing it there. So this link basically works like an href, but as we are using React Router DOM, its syntax, it's a little bit different. So as you have to put something in place of an href, we'll give the keyword to, so we'll remove it, we'll give the home path, okay, so we'll put the /, so like that, we'll give the about path. Okay, now we'll check this, we clicked on about, we move on to the about page, and by doing the linking, can go to this route by clicking on home, and the same will happen with the about. So this is how we can reach to different pages by using linking. We can go to different routes by using linking. Alright, so that was it for this lecture, and now on to the next one. In the last lecture, we learned about the implementation of the React Router DOM. We saw how to do the transition between different pages. Like if we had to go to the about, then we click here and our routing starts on a specific page. So here we've given proper routes, but let's suppose that the user comes to the website and gives the wrong routing by putting incorrect digits. So what will happen? Basically, nothing will be rendered on this route because React has no idea on what to do on this route as we didn't define it. So that's why nothing will happen, because even if they put some incorrect digits, React doesn't know like where should it take them. So we have to handle this condition. Basically, we'll make a page for errors, handling meaning what page should be shown to the user if he puts the wrong URL. So we'll take another route and we'll give the path star. This sign means that the React gets any undefined route, then it will render the component which is in it. Okay, now we'll write element, meaning like when the user puts the wrong route, then the component inside it will be rendered. So we'll make a component and we'll name it error page. We'll import React and we'll make a function in which we'll return the content which you want to display. So here we'll take the p tag in which we'll write this is an error page, and I'll save it. So since we want to return the component, we'll export the error. Now the error page has been created. Okay, now we'll import it. Next, if the user puts the wrong route, we'll render this page. Okay, now we'll call it. We'll check on the browser if it's working or not. So unfortunately it's showing an error, so let me check it. We did a mistake, and that is what's the mistake? It's that we didn't close this route. So now, as you can see, the home page appears. We put the about page, and as you can see, it's being displayed. So in case any user wants to open the about page but put something wrong, like if they put something wrong, then it will show this to them. It will show this is an error page. That's what will be shown to them. So meaning that if the user puts any route which is undefined, then it will render this page. So this is how we can handle error pages and routing if the user puts something wrong. Alright, and now on to the next lecture. In this tutorial, we'll learn one more hook, which is use navigate. So let's understand what this hook does. For example, if we get a condition in which we want that after one condition we do a transition between different groups, we'll do that using the use navigate hook. So basically, if we use this hook for navigation, okay, that's how it works basically. So now I'll show you like an example on how we can use this hook in our program. So to do that, we'll continue our program. We'll close all of these files. Basically, this is our app which is rendered. We'll go to our home page. We'll make a button and we'll right click in it. So we want that when someone clicks on this button, it automatically navigates to the about page. So to do that, we'll import this hook and then we'll initialize it. Now we'll navigate between different pages with the help of this variable. Okay. Now I want that when I click on this button, then I move to the about page through the home page. So to do that, we'll call the onClick method and we'll name it handle click. So we'll then call this function, then we'll navigate with the help of where we have initialized. Okay, so you'll have to write navigate / about, which means that you have to define the path of the route you want to go to. So as we want to go to the about page, that's why we wrote about. So now we save it. Okay, now we'll check it in the browser. We're on the home page, and if I click on it, then we will move to the about page. So this is how we use this hook to do the navigation between different routes. Alright, and now on to the next lecture. In this lecture, we'll work on another project. Basically, we'll make a calculator with React.js. So we'll use hooks in this project. So this is my app.js, and we'll work in it. So first of all, we'll make a div and we'll name it calc. We need all the numbers and operand in the div. So to do that, we'll take the input type. The first input type will be text, and we'll put 0 placeholder, and we'll give an ID as well so that we can fetch. Okay, now we need the button as well. So to do that, we'll take another input and its type will be button. We'll copy it and we'll paste it. And then we'll assign them values. So we are assigning value of 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So we got all the numbers. Now we'll check in the browser. So as you can see, we got the input and the numbers. We'll add more buttons as we'll need a button for operand as well. So I'll give 0, plus, minus, / and other symbols. Okay, so now we'll save it and we check it in the browser. So as you can see, the structure has been designed. Now we'll do some designing to make it a little presentable. So we'll write dot calc and we'll take the width as 320 pixels, margin 100 pixels, and auto. Now it's compiling, and as you can see, it's moved to the center. So now we'll target it through ID. We'll give it ID answer, and we'll give the background color of E3, 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 and the padding of 10 pixels. So we'll increase its font size to 35 pixels, width to 295 pixels, and the height to 45 pixels. Okay, so I want to move it to the center by text align right. Okay, so I'll make a border 3 pixels solid. Now it has moved towards the right. Now we'll target the buttons and we'll give the background 333, the height of 80 pixels, the width of 80 pixels, color white. So we'll give the class name of button to 9. We need to increase the font size of these digits, so we'll put the font size of 30 pixels, border of 1 pixel, solid black. And now as you can see, it looks more presentable. So we'll write another property, float left. Now we'll put this class name button in all of them, so as you want the same property in all of them. So we'll save it, and here you go, we can see the changes. So it has displayed it in the way we want it. But if we've missed any sign, which is dot, so we'll copy it and we paste it, and then we have to put dot sign. Now it seems like a complete calculator, but still we have to add more buttons like clear and equal. I want to remove these white spaces, so I'll add a class button1 and we'll target as well. So we'll give the width of 160 pixels. Now you can see that all spaces have been covered. So our designing work has been completed. In the next tutorial we'll do calculations with the help of use state. Okay, and now on to the next one. As we did the design of our calculator, now we'll look at the functionality. So we'll go back to our files and we have to perform calculations through hooks. So first of all, we'll import use state from React, and here we'll initialize result, set result, and here we'll use state whose initial value will be blank. Okay, so here we'll put the value which is result. Now I want that whenever I click on this button, then the value should be displayed. So for that we'll make a function, click handler. Basically we have a result which has no initial value. Now we want that the value of this variable should be updated. So to do that we'll write set result. If I click on 9, then 9 will appear, and if I click on 8, then 8 will appear, and then it will concatenate. So we have to access the value of these buttons. So we'll write event.target.value, and we have to pass the event as well. So now I'll put onClick so that the buttons are clicked. Their value will come to set result and will get concatenated. So event.target.value means that if I click this button, its value will be stored in set result, and when the value is stored, then it will concatenate. So I'll write click handler and we'll copy it. Let me show you. So I'll click on 9. It's not working. So let me check the problem. Okay, now I have corrected it, and as you can see, it's working now. I'll copy this function and we'll add with all the buttons, as we have to use all of the buttons, so we'll add the operands as well. Now I'll save it, and as you can see, whichever button I'm clicking on, I'm getting its value. So basically it's getting concatenated and getting stored in the use state as well. So we'll make another function and we'll name it const clear display, in which we'll give the set result value 0, because I want that when I click here, then the value should be clear. So due to running of this function, we have 3 present 3 times. So to do that, we'll call the clear display function on the clear button, and with this one we click clear button, and then any value which will be present will be erased. So now we'll save it, and as you can see, I'm clicking on clear and it's getting cleared. Okay, so now we'll make another function and we'll name it calculate, and we'll use the set result variable. So this function helps you to evaluate the value. We'll write this in 2 strings, so if it has any error, then it converts it into a string. Now we'll call the function such that when we click on this button, then this button will be targeted and will evaluate the value. So now I'll save it and we'll see it in the browser. 3 plus 3 equals 6. If we clear it, then it is clearing. So the calculation is working. We've made a React project with the help of JSX functionalities. Alright, so now you know that hooks of React.js are important and useful. And yeah, so that's pretty much it for this lecture, and now on to the next one. In this lecture, we'll work on APIs. So we'll learn how we can use RESTful APIs in our project and how we can manipulate APIs and fetch the data that we want. Okay, so first things first, what is an API? If we have to fetch the data from the server, then we'll have to send the request, and that request is a form of API. So in this lecture, we'll send a request API on the server, and then we'll try to fetch the data from that server. So for that, the RESTful API we are using is a Pokemon API. So this API provides us the details of all Pokemon and tells us like which Pokemon is present on what number. Alright, so we'll try to integrate the API of this website. So now we'll go to our VS Code and we'll make a component with the name of Pokemon.js. Okay, so now we'll import React on it, which is our normal boilerplate. So we'll make a function and we'll name it Pokemon. So our function has been created. Now we'll give a heading h1 Pokemon. Okay, we'll import it on our function. We'll export it there, export default Pokemon, and then we'll call the function. So now our component has been rendered. Okay, we'll check it. Yes, it's working. So basically we want to select option that whatever number we select, then on that number, whichever Pokemon is present on it, it should be fetched for us. So we're making a select option. The first option value will be 1. We'll copy it and we'll paste 5 times, and we'll give them the numbering of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 respectively. So our select option has been created. Now we'll put its value num. We'll give a function and we'll define it. So we'll import use state from React. OnChange is a parameter which we'll name it event. Okay, we'll copy this value, we'll paste it, we'll write event.target.value. Now whatever value will be selected by the user, then that value will be changed automatically. So basically when the onChange function will run, then this setNum will be updated and its value will be changed. Okay, so now I'll write here h1 you choose num value. So here no value has been defined for use state, so we'll have to define it so that we get the initial value. Okay, we'll check on the browser without giving any value, and as you can see, whatever value we are selecting, we are getting the value. Okay, you can select how we can update the value with the help of use state. So this is all happening dynamically. Alright, so that's pretty much it for this lecture, and now on to the next one, in which we'll learn how to fetch the data. Okay, so we'll continue the project. We'll try to fetch the data and to display it on our website. So to do that, we already have done our basic things. So now we want that when we click on any number, the Pokemon name should be displayed if it's present on that number. Like different Pokemons are present on different numbers. And yeah, so basically that's what we're looking to do. We have already made the UL, so now we'll try to fetch the RESTful API. And to do that, we'll install the package of npm. We'll go to axio-npm and we'll install Axio package in our project. So to do that, we'll use this command npm install axios, as it helps us to fetch our APIs. So we'll copy it and we'll paste it in the terminal. We'll install it. And okay, so it's already installed. That's why I don't need it to do. I don't need to do it, like it's already installed. Alright, let me show you in the package.json. Where it is. Okay, as you can see, I already have the Axio version in my project, so I can use it. All right. If you don't have it, then you need to install it. So if you don't have it installed, basically, then you can add the npm install Axios in your dependencies. Okay, now we'll try to fetch the data. So the data we're trying to fetch will be through this URL. So this is the simple URL, but this number will define which Pokemon is present on this number. Like the Ditto is present on number 0, the Pikachu is present on number 1, and so on. So now, we want that when our page renders for the first time, then this data should display there. So to do that, we'll use the use effect. We've already learned the concept of use effect. That is, like it runs when your page renders for the first time, so that the data which will be available will display. Okay, so we'll put the use effect function, and we'll have a callback function. So we'll make a function, and when the function runs, then the data which will be present will be given to us. So we'll make async function. Okay, we use it when we have to send a request to the server, and basically we wait for the response back for the request. All right, so we'll name async function as getData. In this one, we'll make a variable with the name of response. Whenever you'll use async, then you have to use await keyword. All right, so what are we waiting for? Basically, we're just waiting for the APIs. So we'll fetch Pokemon API with the help of the package of Axios we have installed, and we'll use the get to fetch it. So I'll copy the API from here and I'll paste it. I told you that the URL will be the same, but this number will define the Pokemon name. So we want this number to be dynamic, as we'll change this number through use state. Okay, so I used the backtick to update this number. If you are using the backtick, then you'll have to use the $sign. So basically, when you will select any number, then here the number will be updated. Like if we select 1, and then here we'll get 1, and when the request will be made, and we'll get the details of Pokemon present on 1. So let me show you. I'll call the function getData. We'll write console.log res. So we have to import the Axios. Let me inspect that we're getting the data or not, if we are getting it or not. So as you can see, we're getting an object, and the request we've sent has appeared in the browser. So as you can see, it's showing that the Pokemon Bulbasaur is present at ID 1. If you put 2 and C, we are getting Ivysaur. So we've done it statistically, but now I want to do it dynamically, such that when we select the number, we fetch the data automatically. So to do that, we'll write num and put $. Now, we'll select the number and we'll get the details of Pokemon present on that number. If you want to get only the name of Pokemon, then we'll go to data and response, and we'll have to fetch the data. So we'll write res.data.name and we save it. So if you select 2, then we're getting this Pokemon. We have to display it here. Okay, so we'll take h1 tag on select, and we'll write my name is, open brackets, close brackets. All right, as we got the name, but we have to save it as well. So to do that, we'll make a variable, and let's see how we can continue with this project. So we'll continue in the next lecture. Let's move on. Okay, so in this lecture, we'll continue our project, which we were learning on how to fetch the data from Pokemon website. So we display Pokemon on the basis of number. There is a huge number of Pokemon's data available on this website, so we can fetch the data from APIs. The main reason of showing this project is to give you a basic concept on how to fetch the data through API and to display it here. So I've already showed you like how to fetch the data. I'll write console.log res, and in this way we can get real-time data through API. So in this tutorial we'll show the name and the move of Pokemon on the basis of these numbers. So for displaying the names and moves of Pokemon, we'll write console.log res.data.name, and then we'll make another use state, name, set name, and we'll define use state. Okay, so we'll do the same for moves, and we'll define set moves. Okay, now we'll get the data, and we'll have to take out the name of the data. So and yeah, like we'll store it in a variable, and the same goes for the moves as well. As the API runs, we'll get more new data, and then we'll change the new data in state. So this is the benefit of use state. It's that we can change the real-time data constantly. So this React hook is very useful to manage the real-time data. Okay, so we'll remove it, and we'll write set name res data name, as whenever we'll get new set name, then this variable will be called, and then its value will be updated. So we'll do the same with set moves, and we'll write res.data.moves. Okay, now we'll take the h1 tag, in which we'll write my name is span, and we'll define a name. So we'll take another h1 tag, in which we'll write I have span, and we'll define moves. So let me do a little inline styling as well. So to do that, we'll take span, and we'll put this as, yeah, like we'll put this in the span tag. So I'll do inline styling to make it a little presentable. So we'll put it in the span. I'll write console.log, open brackets, res.data.moves, close brackets. And as you can see, you didn't get anything here because we are getting an array in the form of moves. So as the length is 90, like since the length is 90, so we have to show 90 moves. All right, so we'll put the length. Now we'll save it and display it. I clicked on 2, and it's showing me the name and moves of Pokemon. Okay, like this we can get the details of all the Pokemons. All right, so you can see how we fetch the real-time data through an API. We simply call the API directly and display the data. So if you want to use the get method, then you have to use XQS. You have to use the async function, and if you want your function to wait until you don't get responses whenever you are using the async function, then you have to use wait keyword. Like you have to use the wait keyword, then your async function will respond properly. So let me change the number, and as you can see what we're getting on 5, so we're getting Charmeleon Pokemon on 5, so we're replacing it with 25. Now we'll save it and we'll view it. So as you can see, we're getting Pikachu on the 25. And if we reply 25 with 15, then we are getting Beedrill Pokemon. So I took just 5, but you can fetch the data of every Pokemon. Okay, so these hooks are really powerful. Like use effect that you just reload the page. Okay, but this function will run and give you the data. Use effect gives the data just after getting rendered. So you can see how values are getting dynamically changed through use state. Okay, I'm basically telling you that the hooks of React are very powerful, especially when you fetch APIs through any website or server and what to display on the website. Okay, I hope this project was helpful to you and that it made things clearer. So when you go for some other professional projects and like in your professional career, then you'll get to know that there are a lot of websites from which you have to fetch real-time data. It could be like the stock market, stock data, the weather, or any other type of data that you need to fetch in a real-time manner. So these methods will be helpful to you at that time, like when you need it to, when you need to fetch your data, like your real-time data. All right, so I think this project is enough for now, just for you to get the basic understanding of how all of this works. And yeah, so that's pretty much it for this lecture, and now on to the next one. Okay, so in this lecture, we'll see the map function of the array looping. Okay, I think you already have a basic concept of the map function, but if you don't have any idea about it, so I'll show you like how it works. The main purpose of this lecture is for you to learn how we can use the map function in JSX elements and how powerful it is for the rendering of the information in JSX elements. So first of all, we'll revise the map function. Okay, so the syntax of map function is array.map. So basically, we have 3 arguments in array.map. The first argument is the current value. The current value is like when we have an array and we're doing a loop on it. So the value we're getting from each loop is the current value. The second argument is index. So what is the index argument? If we're doing a loop on the array and did our first loop, so our index will be 0. This is how we can get a track of the index of the array through this argument. So the third argument is of array. So suppose we're making arrays and we do the mapping of the arrays, and if we lose the track of the arrays, this array has the track on which the array we're looping on. This argument works when you have more than one array and we're looping on them. So if we want to know on which array we're looping, we use this argument. Alright, so I reviewed the concept on how this array.map works. So that's what we just reviewed together. I'll now show you how to implement and how to use it in JSX elements. Okay, so first of all, we'll make an array. Then we'll input the information of people in this array, and then we'll render it here. So we're making an array with the name array, and we're going to make objects in this array. So now we're making the first object, in which we'll put the name of first person, John. We'll write his expertise, front-end developer, and his experience, 3 years. So our object has John. So this is created. Okay, we'll make another object in which we'll name, we'll call it like Mark. We'll write his expertise, back-end developer, and his experience, 4 years. So the third object name would be Sarah, expertise, DevOps, engineer, and experience, 6 years. Okay, so our array has been made in which we have like 3 objects, and in these objects we have different information. Okay, now we'll try to render the data of every person in JSX element through looping. So to do that, we'll take the h1 tag, in which we'll write personal information. Now we'll check our server, and yes, it's working. So now we'll make a map function, and as we are using JavaScript, that's why we'll have to use expression. Okay, so to do that, we'll make an array and we'll use map function in it. If we have to render h1, so if it will loop like 1 time, then we'll get the object. In the object, we need the name property, so we'll try to access the name through object. Okay, so we had to put the h1 tag outside, so we'll remove it from here, and now we'll check if it can access it or not. So it's still showing errors, apparently. Yeah, like we have to return the value. Okay, so when a function is made, then we always have to return the value. Now, as you can see, it's showing us John, Mark, and Sarah. When it loops the first name, we get John, Mark, and Sarah. And when it loops the second time, then we'll get Mark. It will keep on looping till we don't get the end of the array. So if we remove it and write expertise, then we are getting expertise. If we write experience, then you can see that we start getting experience. So this was the basic concept on how you loop the array through map function and can be rendering the elements here. Okay, I hope you got the basic concept of how all of this works. You can display the information and how, I hope you understood how you can display the information with the help of the map function. Alright, and now on to the next lecture. In this tutorial, I'll show you how you can use the Material UI. So in React, there are different icons and avatars in your project. This library of Material UI is very useful. With its help, you can use different icons, fonts, and avatars. You can do it through CDN as well, but I'll tell you how you can install it in your project and use it in your own project. Okay, so we'll go to our VS Code and we'll stop our project by pressing Ctrl+C. As you can see, it has terminated. So now we are in our first application and we have to install it in package.json. So this is their website, and in this they have told us how to install it in React and the React project. Okay, so if you are using the npm, then you have to use this one, and if you are using the yarn, then you can install this one. Okay, so we'll copy it and we'll paste it here, and then we click on enter. So it has been installed now. The dependencies will be installed and will be present in package.json file. So it may take some time, as all the content will move to in the package.json file. Okay, if we have to use different components, then it is possible to do it through it. So there are usage available as well, in which we'll get to know how to use it in our project. Okay, as the installation has been completed, the dependencies of Material UI have been stored here. Now we'll go back to installation and we'll install the second one, styles component, in our project. Okay, we'll copy and paste it here. We're getting ready-made templates as well. If you want, then you can get ready-made source code. So it's very helpful when you don't want to write like lengthy codes. So you can get like ready-made source codes from here. Okay, the dashboard is available. If you're making an e-commerce store and you need a dashboard in which you have to keep information regarding your product, so customers and orders, then you can use a dashboard like this, for example. Okay, so there are multiple source codes available. You just have to import these into your project. Okay, it's still installing, so usually it doesn't take like that much time usually. And yeah, so premium templates are available as well. It's useful when you're making a professional website, so you just have to take this website template and then integrate it. Okay, so it's a very useful library. Okay, our second dependencies have been installed. Now we'll install the third dependencies, which we'll use for icons. So we'll copy and we'll paste it here. Now it has started the installation. Okay, all of our dependencies are now installed. We got all the dependencies to use Material UI in our system. We got in package.json file. So now we'll try to integrate components and icons in our system. For that, we'll go to the website of Material UI and we'll go to font icons. And as you can see, there are huge numbers of icons available. You can use them in your project. So you can search for anything that you're looking for and you'll get like something related to it. So for example, like now I'm searching for email and I got icons related to email. To use it, we'll copy it and then we'll paste it in our project. So basically, we'll write it in expression. If you want to render it, then we'll write email icon, we save it, and then we'll start the application. So we can select different colors and sizes as well. If you're searching for phone, for example, then you'll get icons related to phone. The icons of phone are like various. They come in different types and shapes. So we have a variety: outlined, filled, rounded, etc. In short, we have a lot of variety. You just have to import them in your application. So now our development server is getting started. Then we'll be able to render it out to our page. So yeah, like the email icon which we have imported is showing an error. The mistake was that we were not supposed to put it in expressions. Okay, now my icon have been displayed. So if I want to use another icon, then I'll copy and paste it here. Then I'll try to render it. And as you can see, now we have two different icons being displayed. You can take icons randomly or you can search for them as well. So yeah, I wanted to give you the basic concept on how you can use different icons by using npm. Now, you can simply use CDN like what we used to do in JavaScript, but since we're using React.js now, that's why we're following this structure. Okay, so this was the benefit of using npm. You don't have to write the script again and again. You just have to install the dependencies in package.json file. Alright, and now on to the next lecture. Alright, so we've now come to the end of this course, of this tech journey in React.js. So we're going to end the series here at this point. I hope that you all learned a lot about React, that you discovered like lots of new things as we practiced them progressively, as we analyzed them and implemented them with the help of React.js. So we saw how we can create user-friendly, fast websites from React.js. We learned how to make React apps. We understood the structure of JSX, how to make component-based functions. We saw props. We saw the React route DOM. We saw everything related to React.js. Like all the basics, which a good developer must absolutely know. Alright, so I hope that you've learned a lot from these lectures. And for me, a good developer is someone who implements things after learning them. So it's good that you're watching this, but now you have to practice. You have to build your own things, your own projects. That's how you learn. That's how you become like an expert, a professional. Yeah, so basically most companies prefer React.js. With the help of React.js, you can make your career and you can have a very good career and you can earn lots of money. So as you've learned about this, it doesn't mean that you need to stop at this point. A good developer is someone who knows how to improve every single day as technology keeps on evolving and changing. So never stop learning, never ever stop learning. You should be curious on what's next after React.js. And yeah, it depends on your journey, like what you already know and what you don't know. So never ever stop learning. If you want to be a front-end developer, then I would recommend you to pick React.js as something that you would specialize in your career. You should learn back-end as well, like Node.js and so on and so forth. And you can then combine it with a lot of different things. Alright, so I hope that all the lectures were super clear to you. I really wish you the best of luck in your web development journey. Whether it is back end or front end, I wish you the best of luck. Never ever stop learning, and I really hope that you learned a lot from our course and our lectures. Good luck and hope to see you soon.